we raised a little money to build a technology company, a for-profit company to match street artists with projects. And our mission is until every wall is beautiful. We believe there's way too many ugly walls. So if you have an ugly wall, you should be painting it. And I was a district director at the state senate for a while, so I got a little bit of experience with working with the state and all the things that need to change. So I guess my motivation now is, my real motivation is getting real good information to people. I really praise a lot of the people who work for government because they're not all bureaucrats. There's plenty of them, but they're not all just bureaucrats. A lot of people are just in their job. They want to see things better, but they're not entrepreneurial, and they don't want to lose their job. They do the best they can. And there's also a lot of people who go home at 5 o'clock and that's the end of their day. There's so much opportunity for entrepreneurs to get involved, but the culture does not allow for any bit of even modest change.
Welcome back to the Hustle and Grind podcast, the show where we dig into why real entrepreneurs trade comfort for conviction. This isn't about vanity metrics or overnight success. It's about the stories behind building a reputation that actually matters. I'm your host, Andrew, keynote architect, platform builder, and fellow founder in the trenches. Today, I'm sitting down with Evan Meyer, the founder of Ride Amigos and Beautify Earth. Evan is a serial founder who doesn't just build companies, he builds better cities. From optimizing global commuter travel with Ride Amigos to transforming urban landscapes into galleries with Beautify Earth, Evan has scaled platforms that move people, both literally and emotionally. With a background spanning the California State Senate to the host chair of Meyer Side Chats, he's a civic leader dedicated to rebuilding trust in government and infusing humanity into polarized spaces. He's an avid muralist, a musician, and a master of creative projects who believes that purposeful culture is the ultimate foundation for impact. So, Evan, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it. I know we heard about all of the things you're doing, and I love the serial entrepreneur, I want to do all these things kind of energy. So we're going to get into some of that today, but I wanted to start off with say thank you so much for being on today. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to a chat.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Cool. So everyone heard, the intro that I do based on a bio that you have, but I love to hear it in your own terms, especially with somebody as much experience as you have. What is your one ninja skill? Like, what's that one thing you're really good at?
My one ninja skill, I honestly think I'm like a jack of all trades. I think I'm really good at picking up just about anything and getting really good at it. Not great.
Yeah.
But good. Like, I can just throw anything at me. It doesn't really matter. And I think that's what's made me like a good chief operating officer. Mm-hmm. I'd say is like probably my favorite role.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, go figure out how to create some technology around this legal problem. Like, we need to, automate some. And it's like, okay, that sounds fun. I'll take that on. Go. We need to optimize our sales process so that it, works a little more efficiently. We seem not to be, we're missing here in the funnel. We want to, increase this part of the funnel. Work with our heads of sales to figure that out. Okay,
let's go.
Can you learn this instrument real fast? Go learn this instrument real fast. Yeah, no problem. I'll go figure out how to do that.
We heard that you also have a ninja skill for helping out your friends there. That you're going to go help a friend do what?
Yes, I have I have a friend who has just moved into a new apartment, and there's a smell, and that smell needs to be investigated. And it may be something in the mold department or in the fumigation department. He seems to respect me for my nose.
There you
have
go.
a very good nose, not a great nose.
Yes,
but it's good.
It's decent. It's about to get to learn a little bit more about mold than people want to know and stuff like that. So go smell my mold.
Believe it or not, I have some education in mold. I think I'm good. Again, not great, but I'm good at mold.
Yeah, exactly.
When it comes to understand.
It's one of those things. I think us as entrepreneurs, this is one thing we're really good at. We can go deep dive, do our thing. We're going to go figure it out. We're going to go do this like massive hyper focus on something and learn enough about it to be able to apply the information, right? And it makes it so much fun. Yeah.
I think it's a drive to learn. A lot of it's like, you find very, very few things uninteresting.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I think you kind of have to have this inspiration for learning and wanting to understand how things work and being excited to go do that, whatever it is. And I think that's part of the entrepreneurial journey and a skill set that a lot of entrepreneurs have. So my ninja skill, I wouldn't say is unique to me, of course. But it's something that can be generally understood as a good entrepreneur, or probably more for a COO entrepreneur. Yeah.
Except bookkeeping. I don't want to dive into that. I hate bookkeeping. There's a limit. I don't know.
Yeah. Bookkeeping's not so much fun for me either. Data entry also is not something I love to do, but sometimes most things you have to do so that you can understand it and figure out what needs to be done, because it still needs to be done. Like, you can't not do it. So you don't have to do it, but you need to figure it out.
Well, exactly. And I love you said that, because it's the way that I run my business is limited functional knowledge of every aspect. I just have a general idea what it is, and then I hand it off to an expert, but I also know if they're doing the job correctly or what generally has to happen and what lane they're in and what they're good at. And I think that's something, it's interesting to bring up too, is that I know bookkeeping, I can do it, I just don't like it. It's not my zone of genius. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, but knowing how to do it and knowing if a bookkeeper is doing something right or wrong, or knowing where their lane is I think really important too.
Yeah, some people love bookkeeping. There's a certain sense of organization and everything matches. They love doing that stuff. And I think, more power to them. And there's a place for everybody.
I got my accountant for Christmas one year a T-shirt that said the H in accounting stands for happiness. So, I don't know. That's kind of my feeling on it. But yeah, he got a good laugh out of it. He has a really weird sense of humor.
I think I'm going to use that one.
The H in accounting stands for happiness. Yeah.
That is really good. I'll try to remember to quote you on it, but if it gets back that, hey, someone tells you that joke, it may have been because I've used and abused it and didn't credit you enough.
It's all good. I picked it up somewhere else too. It's just been kind of making its way through the interwebs.
All right. So did that guy. That guy. Sorry, your friend. Your friend is the original.
We'll say it's the OG. Okay. I don't know where I picked it up. Right. And he got a good kick out of it too. So let's talk. So now that we know what your ninja skill is, let's talk about a little bit of some of the stuff you're doing, like with Beautify Earth and MyGovTools and stuff like that. What are you up to right now? Like, besides outside the bio, tell me a little bit about how you got into it. Let's just start with Beautify Earth to go from there.
Sure. Well, how I got into it probably starts back at my first job out of college. Mm-hmm. Well, no, not my first job out of college. I was called to build Ride Amigos with my best friend, Jeff Chernick. He had problems getting to his office in Manhattan. It was too expensive to take a cab every day uptown, and he lived in the Village downtown. So, but Subway was too long and cold. So I built a ride matching database that would put people together to connect them for rides in New York City for work, generally for commuting. And this was before apps, AI, anything. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago, where we were just doing, a matching algorithm, and that led to an awesome company called Ride Amigos. And after, I'd say, 12 or 13 years of that, we began to branch off and start to do some other things while maintaining my director role there. Mm-hmm. And Beautify began. I joined my neighborhood board called the Ocean Park Association because I wanted to get involved in my community. Eventually, I became the president, which was fun. And it took a little longer than I hoped, but I was able to make some good, meaningful change around the neighborhood activity there, and what we did there in Ocean Park, Santa Monica. But during that time, there was a street called Lincoln Boulevard that was called Stinkin' Lincoln. It's still largely Stinkin' Lincoln, but a lot of it has been turned around, and largely because of the murals that I began putting up there that became a thing to do. It's called Beautify Lincoln. It eventually became Beautify Earth. We did all these Beautify projects for many years around. We worked with schools to help kids do painting in their own community, in their own school, and get them realizing they can make change in their community. We raised a little money to build a technology company, a for-profit company, to match street artists with projects, and our mission is until every wall is beautiful. We believe there's way too many ugly walls. So if you have an ugly wall, you should be painting it, and contact Beautify Earth. But so during that time, got really involved. I realized I'm like a government guy. Somehow I just worked with government in so many capacities that with all of this, that I started my own podcast called Meyer Side Chats that I do, and also something called MyGovTools, which helps elected leaders communicate more effectively through our newsletter service and regularly communicate with their constituents real, factual, concise information that we help with. So doing that, and I was a district director at the state senate for a while, so I got a little bit of experience with working with the state and all the things that need to change. So I guess my motivation now is, my real motivation is getting real good information to people. I think there's a big loss in data integrity and information fidelity when it comes to understanding what's happening in current events. I just think there's just so much blather and storytelling and telephone. This massive game of telephone where no one is in the room where it happens and everyone thinks they have facts and truth. And no one really has that much facts and truth at all. It's a sliver. It's based on a true story kind of thing. And there's so much staunch belief in these things. And I guess I feel like my job right now has been to be more on the education side through Meyer Side Chats, through MyGovTools, and to try to encourage people to have some intellectual humility, think critically, look at things from all perspectives, and get involved in local community, the importance of local community and not international politics, which we're so far removed from, but go help get your neighborhood cleaner. That's so easy to do. You could do that today. People spend too much time hating everything. You just go make some good change in your community. You could do that right now. It starts there. Exactly. So that's where my mind's at. That's where my head's at. That's what I've been doing. That's how I got there. I hope that sums up.
It actually brings up a really cool question too, though, because you're the first entrepreneur that I've talked to who is also in the government space. Most of the time, I'm in corporate and I'm an entrepreneur, or I'm only in entrepreneur space. When I say corporate, I mean large corporations. So tell me about so you said you were a district director for the California State Senate. Tell me about how you got started in that, and what is that like being an entrepreneur in a space where there's bureaucracy on bureaucracy? I always think about the Vogons from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when I think about government, anything. 16 miles worth of bureaucracy. How does that work for you?
Great question. So the answer is it doesn't work very well.
Okay.
But a lot of the GovTools thought process kind of was able to start there in a sense. There was a lot of what can we do? So I learned a lot. I think from a learning experience, it was fabulous. I really praise a lot of the people who work for government because they're not all bureaucrats. There's plenty of them, but they're not all just bureaucrats. A lot of people are just in their job. They want to see things better, but they're not entrepreneurial and they don't want to lose their job, and they do the best they can. And there's also a lot of people who go home at 5 o'clock and that's the end of their day. Right? A very unlike entrepreneurial work, right? You're always thinking about how to improve things as an entrepreneur, your business, whatever. Your brain keeps running. It can be stressful if you don't sometimes put a knot in it for the day. But I think there's so much opportunity for entrepreneurs to get involved, but the culture does not allow for any bit of even modest change with any bit of expeditiousness at all. It's like conflict of interest almost, and it's like that for a reason. I think some of it's good reason and a lot of it's pretty bad reason. And it's just fear. It's a lot of, risk aversion. which also comes, a lot of people love to sue government. So governments have also become very risk averse to change, right? So there's a balance there. And there's a way to do that. And a lot of places do it. Mm-hmm. They do encourage creative projects and they take risks, right? You could protect yourself and take risks. Mm-hmm. But, they're working on, it's so hard, they're working on things from like systems from 20 years ago. It feels like you can't possibly be spending taxpayer money effectively using this software from 1998.
Yeah. When I found out that the entire aviation system in the U.S. is mostly run off of 35-year-old technology, and they're still doing updates on 3.5-inch floppy disks because that's what they have right now, was the moment when you realized they're way behind what needs to happen right now. Thankfully, that's changing right now, but it's not something that changes very quickly.
A lot. I think the DMV is still built on some, COBOL. I think Oracle may have taken over the California DMV thing. I forget the whole story around that, but it was I remember there was a policy that was trying to be put into legislation, and they do the appropriations. It got to the appropriations committee, which is where they start talking about what it costs. Mm-hmm. And it was something like $500,000 to make the changes required to increase a speeding ticket from 1 point to 2 points on your driver's record or something.
Wow. Yeah.
It was something crazy. Those numbers aren't precise, but they're close. And it was like something that was, you just cannot as a government, and this is going to be a real problem with the more advanced AI gets, because it's just going to start taking over government and they're not even going to realize it. It just does things, and everyone's using it already. Everyone's using the LLMs for their work. So it's at some point, it's just going to roll in, and people are going to start, if they're not careful, if they can't become agile in policy making. Right now, policy is made at the state level basically every year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's a ridiculous, it's 4,000 bills. I think 1,000 of them become policy, or it may be 16,000 bills and 4,000 of them become policy. There's some crazy number.
And one policy is 600-700 pages. It's not like you can actually read through some of this stuff either, Yeah.
It's huge. So that's why it's going to be valuable, because people aren't going to have to read the AI will read it. Yeah. And hopefully educate our politicians on what they're voting on.
Yeah.
And also people on how to vote better. And that reflects their needs. A lot of times the headlines, not a lot of times, almost all of the time, the same way that people are addicted to headlines in social media, they're addicted to headlines in bills. They don't read the entire, you have to study these things to make an educated decision. Anyone who spends 5 minutes reading about a proposition, the arguments on both sides, which in California, a lot of that text is in the abstract, and the heading is written by the Attorney General's office, I think. And that is a largely biased, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it's largely biased. They're going to make it say what they want. So a lot of times it's they can call it whatever they want to reflect the bill. But the bill can be something entirely different. If it's a complete mismatch, people will be like, what the hell is this? But they can mislead you on what you're actually voting for very often.
It's more of a clickbait title. Yeah.
It's the same thing with because they know people aren't going to read the whole book pamphlet they send out, the book. It's all, you have to really study. It's a studying exercise weeks or months before to understand what's going on and make an educated decision.
Yeah. If you ever had
people should do it.
Yeah, if you ever had to read legislation, it is like burnt toast. It is bad. It's difficult to read. It's not written in a language that we're used to. It's not straightforward. There's a lot of kind of legalese involved in it. Sometimes it's very precise, sometimes it's very broad, and it just depends on what it is. So I 100% get that it's going to be a problem. And I guess the reason I wanted to ask the question too is that as an entrepreneur, that's got to be frustrating, because you're working. I've had government contracts before. So one of my first clients when I first got into business and started the entrepreneur journey was with a large government organization. And it was just me, but then there was 3 other layers of management above me for this little $10,000 course. which was on the very low end of kind of what they were going to spend. And it was really interesting to watch just these, and each one was taking a cut. They weren't really doing a whole lot. It was more, you had your prime contractor, then you had your subcontractors, and sometimes that's 3 or 4 layers. So, the $500,000 to change 1 point to 2 points on a piece of, on some sort of legislation doesn't surprise me. And I think it's something we've all kind of known was a problem too, but just trying to see that as an entrepreneur has got to be frustrating as hell, because you're like, let's go out and do this, let's fix this. And it may not happen.
Well, look, I think that's what Doge was intended to come in and work on. Like that was a lot of the Doge stuff. And I think again, whether people agree with what they did and how that's outside of, that's conversation for Meyer side chat, philosophically. But the intent to clean up and remove waste is generally, I don't know a lot of people who argue that. Like people generally agree. It's not that you should, it's how you do it, right? It's like most problems. It's not the problem that people disagree on. It's the solution to the approach. And it does, as an entrepreneur, especially people in GovTech, like people in the GovTech space have a real hard time with this. I've done, hundreds of contracts with government at this point, and it depends on how you contract and how much your contract is. But the RFP process,
it's insane.
It's really tricky. It's really tricky, and it's built for a lot of the right purposes, but it has all its flaws. And I think all the people in government know that.
Yeah.
No one, like people don't argue it, but some people are just, they're doing their job, and not every battle can be fought. So you say, how do you improve these things? I think you'd have a lot of the government on your side if you did things the right way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? They would be like, yeah, this is good. I don't want to lose my job, but this is a good idea. We should clean this up. This makes sense. It's, and just keep it working.
Exactly, right? And I've been through the RFP process, and I actually had to go through a course to learn how to do the RFP process, then register on sam.gov to do it. It's this there are people that specialize just in writing RFPs for government contracts. That's it. That's all they do, because it's such a complicated process.
Yeah. Well, there was times, and look,
I want to.
It's so complicated. And look, some places have done a really good job at making it better. I know when I was writing a lot of them, they needed binders, multiple binders, labeled with different sections, printed out, everything. These could be hundreds of pages for right. And so, of course, in my head at the time, I'm like, that's a lot of cost and paper. This is an eco operation. Why are we printing all? I think a lot of places are doing PDFs now, allow you to submit hey, you want to print it? You do that.
Yeah.
And so also what happens is there's a barrier to entry with applying, because you need a certain type of expertise and a certain budget to be able to, and time to be able to prepare for an RFP that you're probably not going to win your first 10 anyway.
Yeah, and I think
it
ends up cutting off like smaller, for the prime contractors. And so in government parlance, when I say prime contractor, is always one person that's in charge of like the main contract, and then they subcontract everything under them and get a piece around it.
Prime.
For those who don't know exactly how this works. So, but the primes even have to have you have to have a certain level of income and be a certain, this many years established and have these sorts of specific criteria. And even that, and again, these people have entire departments dedicated to RFPs for the government. But I think when Doge came in, a lot of, I agree with you. And it said, I like the fact that it shone a light on a lot of what this was doing and said, okay, let's just try to see what's going on here. Let's put an entrepreneur eye on it and say, what needs to happen? These things need to be dealt with. This is too much, kind of mixing things up a lot. Do I agree with everything they did? No, but I think it was a necessary thing to do. And I liked the fact that it kind of brought that entrepreneurial spirit to something that is incredibly bold. You've seen it from the inside.
Yeah, it was ambitious. It was
very ambitious.
And look, you asked yourself the question to me, if Doge had a hard time, can you imagine just a random entrepreneur trying to go in and work for the government for a little while and be like, hey, let's do things this way. Let's shift up. No, why don't you put the paper here instead of there? Put the paper in that pile. It's a way faster pile. You'll get through the pile so much faster. Just come on, move the paper. And they're like, we don't put the paper in that pile. It's put in the left pile for the, and
talking about that swing line, his red string line stapler.
Yeah, right. That's right. You can't even change the pile very often. Forget about get rid of paper. It's very challenging. But look, there's a lot of governments that are doing a lot of good work. I don't want to say everything all the time for all departments. My experience is different than probably a lot of progressive governments. I say progressive in a technological sense.
Yeah,
to be very specific in my use of progressive. And they believe in operational efficiency. They believe in I think the main thing here is that if you spend less money on things that can be sped up operationally, then that's taxpayer money, and you could put that towards solving real problems, right? You can give that money directly to the people who need it the most. You can have a larger reserve for the things that people really care about, and not moving paper from one pile to another pile. We shouldn't be, that shouldn't be the thing. It should be like, if you're spending 10 minutes moving that paper and I take that 10 minutes away from you, now you are on the phone with helping people with the affordability crisis in America.
Yeah.
Right? You're on the phone. You're on customer support, making people feel that their government is there for them, that they can trust them, rebuilding that trust. It's so important. And I'm sure, and again, I'm sure some places are doing that. But there's plenty that aren't.
That's why I'm happy that we're going back towards the states' rights, minimal federal government thing. And that's the way we were originally done. The federal government had some things, but it was mostly in the individual states. So we have the ability to move a little bit faster. Maybe not in New York and California, the really big states, but
right.
We had the bureaucracy was spread out over 50 states versus being spread out in one specific location. So
yeah, California's a tough cookie. It's a very big state. It's got more unique problems given its size, and things change when you have that many people. So it's not usually fair. I have plenty of issues with California, but I don't think it's fair to compare them to Tennessee does it this way.
Yeah. Tennessee has the ability to be it doesn't have as much bureaucracy. It doesn't have the oversight that it has that New York and California do.
Yes.
So therefore, it's a little bit different.
Well,
it's not
a little similar
thing,
Exactly. And it's a little similar to comparing Sweden does things this way. Why doesn't the US just do it like Sweden or Canada? And you're like, well, you can use those as, say, inspirational models, but you can't, you can't just transition a country this size with the diversity that we have, with people from different cultures and backgrounds. What makes America so beautiful, right?
Yeah.
But it also means that you have to have your solution address lots of different types of cases, edge cases, as we'd say in the tech world, right? Like, you have to understand all those different types of cases. There's all sorts of people. You can't compare US to Sweden. And I don't think you compare California to Tennessee, but that doesn't mean I don't have my, things that I think California could do a lot better, of course. They're almost independent conversations. It's like, just because you can't be compared to Tennessee doesn't mean that you don't have a lot to improve.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I remember seeing just a random thought that comes in my head. I remember seeing an Oklahoma driver's license probably 20 years ago that was still laminated paper. So kind of shows you how quickly people got up. But
yeah, wow.
I was like, what? Yeah. So anyway, Evan, we're getting towards the end of time. Thank you for being on today. I really appreciate it. I know it's an interesting space, like where the entrepreneurs and government kind of come together. We saw that with Doge, but it's nice to get another kind of a state level idea for what that is today. So thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate your input.
Great to be here. Thanks. It's great seeing you, and I appreciate your time as well. This was great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle and Grind podcast, where we unpack what it really takes to build something that matters. If today's conversation hit home, do me a favor. Share it with someone who's in the trenches too. And if you're building your own brand, platform, or message and want help turning that story into serious authority, head over to theauthorityforge.com to see how we can help. Until next time, keep showing up, keep shipping, and keep chasing the work that sets you on fire. I'm Andrew, and this was the Hustle and Grind podcast.